The loss of tradition is just to do with progress, development globally in human advance, invention, discovery. It's the human mind responding to an environment, improves his lifestyle, develops it. He produced something and he multiplied it by success. He succeeds and he builds on success and success. That's actually the process of life, process of growth. In the beginning, the Creator said to the two who started the life, feed from here, live in this garden, sustain this garden, be productive. Being productive is to exert yourself, is to produce. The organism, the body must produce, must exert itself. How is it directed? By meeting his needs, his food, his shelter, his comfort, his enjoyment, by exerting himself. He's a thinking creature. It's a performing creature. Be productive, and then he said, multiply. Multiply, what he means is that you've husked that coconut, and the husk, you do something better that serves you. You've got the kernel out, and you've got the husk there, and you do something that, oh, I'll make a string out of that. I played a string, the mangi out of that. That is meant by be productive, multiply. And not in the end of the mangi, and you improve on the mangi for something better than that. And that is actually the path and direction to which the human mind takes wings and fly into orbit in every community. The quest for movement forward, for improvement, is not indulgence, it's the comfort of the body and the mind. You cut down that tree, you planted that tree, mahogany, or they call that green factory. The trunk falls down, you got the fruits. You can build log cabin from that. Be productive. I grown that. Multiply. Improve. So I change it, show it up. And then those are building materials. Then I have a different structure. I got a house, a post, this. That's the meaning of multiply. Improve on it. So that life is a series of successes, success building on success. That's how the Western world has come this far. And that's how we do improve in all communities. And then he said, subdue. That means you're not going to be victims of anything. You're going to face challenge. And if there's a kind of a beetle that comes across and attacks your coconut leaf and produces a stunted growth of coconut trunk, that influences your kind of building you can build and improve in the future. You have to subdue that. You have to fight that. You have to attention to weapons. In other words, that weapon is part of the equipment, instrument that surges you forward. It fights, allays, subdue the things that retard your momentum. That is a informal, universal equation for a man. You exert yourself, be productive, extend it, make it more. The space is limitless. But that is not an easy ride. There are challenges in the field. Those challenges are there to strengthen you, to challenge you, to bring out the best in you. Recently, the survey by Price Waterhouse on leadership. And they say the Fijian leaders are redundant, they're losing their role, they're losing their respect. And it became a public debate. And somebody came up with a very simple statement. Somebody from the Constitution or something, there's an office down the road up here. It was Constitutional Review or something. And he said, leader now, the ideal leader, he must be well educated in the Occidental world and have a first experience of the traditional world, because he's going to be able to work out a new synthesis, the flowing together of this, comparison, rejecting, sorting out, and it'll come to the kind of leadership or the decision or the knowledge or the understanding of the ways to lead. This will work nowadays. It's not completely out of the classroom, the bookwork, or from the outside world. It's not completely from the... In either case, you are useless. You have to have the flowing of the two streams together. You harmonize that. And that's why I have achieved so much in my lifetime. I built schools. I was in Port Napa at the military forces. The commander told me, stay here. I pay you. I build a school here so that you teach my officers here to upgrade their English. He was looking at my English, but I think he was seeing something in my attitude, how I see problems. When you stay up there for officers' course, you are bombarded every day with the problems. And there are no known solution to those problems. Never anyone. Every time they conduct their exam, the set of students who sit exam, their answers are not exclusively correct. The answers of some of them are better than or correct than works, because it just shows that what is truth? Truth is something that applies at a moment in time in a particular space. What was true then is not true now. Talking about leadership, leadership is not a static thing. You're dealing with moving moment, changing situation, changing attitude, because the people you're dealing with, they are changing because they're influenced by what they read, what they eat, what they receive from outside, and what is flowing from inside every day, from the kitchen, from the house, from the chief, from the family, from the garden. The most we can do is to get up children through school, but get through them the village through as well. Expose them to the village. Let them live in the village, not just a visit to the village.
So you don't feel that there's a loss in tradition, you feel that there's a change?
There's a change and there's a future. Because we must live. The life that we're living now is just as relevant to the Creator as the life lived 100 years ago to the Creator. Because we're a creature of the moment. The most constant in our life is space and time. We're only two constant in this universe. Space, you have to go to soil, you have to move. But God Almighty say, He assembled SOA, He assembled New Zealand. It's static, it's timeless.
So it's in the accepting of the change and the integrating of other people and the knowledge and learning that we can only move forward.
Yes, we have to move forward.
So there is no loss. If there's gain, it's just adapting and becoming something new.
Something new.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong. The formula, be productive, multiply. That means you're producing. Oh, I got some belly. I got some cock or something. I got beautiful beans here. It doesn't end there. Continue producing beans. But they said multiply, improve on it, find something else, process it, preserve it. So the life is a series of, it's a process of succession of, it's a process of service. It's a series of succession, one succeeding the other. It's a series of succession. Maybe a definition I put myself, the way from my perspective. When you die, it ends there with you. You were just a player. And when we speak of leaders, there's a succession of leaders coming in. When Ratu Jo was around, we applaud him as a God on earth. And as he went by, as years goes on, we forget about him. He's only applauded and worshipped in the minds by those who knew him, or have read about him, or heard about him. Once the last person who knew Ratu Jo ends there, it's finished. Unless they put a monument and they keep reminding the others coming in about, what's this? Oh, that's the man who, that's the man. That's why people put up monuments. They want to establish something that will serve till kingdom come, beyond our oral tradition, beyond the knowledge that is transmitted orally. You wonder, and the last person who understands, who knows, it ends there. But he has been a guide of what we call tradition, from generation to generation, perfected throughout the years, the wisdoms of the past. And we get the best way to catch fish through the netting, because what we have here, the bamboo netting, is not just an invention overnight. It has been perfected, produce, be productive, multiply the success we have more successes, so that we have a series of successes. And on that series of successes rides your comfort from generation to generation. You know, the people in the field would have a better way of explaining it, but that's the way I explain the reality in which I live, and I'm able to move about, and I'm able to communicate and converse with the people. The tradition, I've answered, that means we must really get out, know the tradition. Your mind is vacant because you are devoid of having holidays in the village, so that you can appreciate that, you can become part of it, because it's still a reality, the traditional world. Our people are poor for this, they're disadvantaged. They live in a fragmented world because they come to a point where they don't understand it. That would be the traditional input, that input from the real traditional world that is still around us.
Do you think they're suffering?
If anything, they are missing out. They're missing out in the sense that they affect it influences negatively their performance in facing challenges, solving problems. They're not complete, they're not themselves. There would have been something there from the traditional way. I'm very blessed because I was brought up in a village. It's my strongest weapon. In what way? I have a peace of mind. Why? Because I know that I know. Period. I'm not disturbed or emotionally unsettled because I could not accommodate that in my conscious mind. Because you don't have an experience of it. As you are, there's no input in there of the infant age, adolescent age, teenage age, marriage age in that world. Because it's still very much a real world, a traditional world. They'll still, traditional values and influence will still very much dictating the reality of people living in this part of the world for another 2, 3, 4 generations or until kingdom come. Because knowledge you cannot really put away. And the more you know, improve your life, the more you draw on the history of knowledge. Not just mentally, but the technology, the way you do things. the people in the village, how they build the houses, they're knotting. You were poorer because you don't know how to tie knots. But it's a natural thing that people in the village do. They tie. They don't have nails.
The skill, yeah?
Traditional.
What are your thoughts on the loss of skill, of traditional skill, and just the loss of like stories and ideas? Do you think that there's a gap between your generation and the generation that's now coming through? Do you think there's a loss there in between?
There's a movement forward. And because we're moving forward, we're a victim in one way or another. There must be tomorrow. That is a universal law. But the natural rhythm, the change of the season, should dictate our reality.
So you don't see it as a loss? You personally, you don't see it as a loss?
I don't see a loss because the people in that situation, they're not the same people who are in another situation who don't have any loss, but they live in a complete harmonious traditional setup. But only I think it's unfair and real that we make judgment of us through the different criteria. And of course, there are situations where we must do that. Like the people in the West, you obviously young people wandering around, they don't know whether to plant or whether to find job, and they shack up with their parents and children, they drift around the village. Those are the misfits, the victims of the difficulty to accommodate or to harmonize the different sides flowing together. Difficult, no matter how much we do it, because there's so many things flowing together. Very extreme. Now we are condemning Asia coming in, America. We really accept the victory of Trump with the concern that would it be all right? Would it influence our future in the South Pacific? There's so much thing happening in oppression. We're living in a fragmented world. What I like the T.S. line. Who am I? All I can do is to shore. Shore means to shore. When you make the word shore, when you make that a verb, you become the victims of natural movement of the waves, shoring. Things coming up on the shore, coming from nowhere, but you have to accept it. They're drifters, and you have to do something. So you pick up the drifters and you commemorate it and you celebrate something real, reminding of some reality in shapes like this. But it's actually referring to your mind, but not completely colonize your mind and it's a living thing and then influence the way you think. It's a relic. And a relic is a relic. He said, who am I to question what I show? But then my reality is what I show throughout time. That means the drift is coming up and that's our reality. Different ocean beats. And what are these ocean beats? From different influence, from different culture, from different group, from different generation, from different season, from different civilization. That's the reality of life. Thank God there are people living behind us who harmonize it, and when they come us, we partly know, yeah, I recognize it. No, but I don't really know completely. But that is a fact of life. You don't know anything completely. You know part of it, but you cannot trace that to the origin or the beginning. Am I putting crudely?
Yes, it's very clear. I understand it. So you have to see it as the bigger picture.
Yes.
You can't see it as something that will stay in its state.
Yes.
It needs to stay in its state to survive.
As a complete and self-sufficient and as a describable, as a unit.
Yeah. Like it almost needs to shed itself and take on a new form as it moves to survive.
Yes. And its survival, it's only new. It's a person who perceives and sees it. Because he's an agent of life. Life is not beyond us. When you read that book, there's no life in that book. You bring life to that book.
The imagination, experience.
You bring character to the character.
And everything else that every person you've met, and you're able to pick from everything.
You cannot respond.
Knowledge, yeah?
Cannot respond to it completely. You only respond to it, part of it. There's a dialogue, an encounter between you and the thing you're encountering. There's a give and take. There's a chemical reaction. You take on to yourself as mine. They influence you, and by strange chemical process, you make it yours. And from then on, it begins to dictate and influence your life by choosing, by rejecting. What's it? It's not mine, but I take it on. I learned this from. And that's something that is partly consciously, and something the body is part of the metabolism of the human body.
So I think the conflict that is now within the traditional system is that those that are in the mindset of holding on to what should be, and those who are prepared to move on and let it change. So that's the two mindsets that are in conflict.
It's one mindset. It's a process. You go through it. Some travel at a different rate. Some stay there and they don't move on. Some become, oh yes, I know. It's a movement from point A to point B. It's a movement of growth, movement of the body, the metabolism of the body, the chemical of the brain. And
of change.
You understand, you know, I know. That's why I say the greatest knowledge and understanding and the discovery and the gain the human metabolism, the human mind or the person could have is to know himself. My tradition is this. They used to do this like this. But these people are doing that way. If you have to have a future, you harmonize the two. There must be a conflict. It begins with a conflict, but there's a resolution. That's the making of the human mind. It resolves and arrive at a new synthesis. So the discovery. I don't like that character, but you like that character is very essential. It's part of your understanding. You accommodate in some strange metabolism. You have rejected bad character in your mind. The devil, it's your part of thinking. They influence your reality. They guide you. And influence your joy and your happiness. Thank God there's no devil here. But you have to know the devil so that you can have that enjoyment, that you are free.